The James Webb Telescope was launched with the aim of finding out more about our universe. It is meant to answer a lot of questions that we have been having about our universe and our galaxy. So far, it has been making a lot of progress as it has been aligning its mirrors. This was in preparation before it began operations. But now, with the completion of the alignment, what's next for the telescope? Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're going to talk about the James Webb Telescope and what comes next since it has successfully completed alignment and setup. But before we continue, please take a moment to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more space news. And with that, let's find out more about this amazing telescope. We were so grateful to watch the successful launch of the James Webb Space Telescope on December 25, 2021. With the James Webb Telescope, scientists will now be able to look into the earliest stars, the ancient universe, and a lot of other mysteries about the universe that we have never answered. This is expected to go on for the next 20 years. For the past few months, the telescope has been getting ready to begin its official mission. But before we find out what's next for the telescope, let's first have a look at some of the recently released images from the James Webb Telescope. These images were taken to showcase the quality of the images and the sharpness of all four main instruments on the telescope. These images are a clear indication that everything has finally been aligned, and everything seems to be operating just fine. In fact, each of the instruments is working better than the scientists expected. The images are absolutely stunning. As you may already know, the telescope has been flying around a spot that is known as L2 or Lagrange 2 for the past few months. This spot is approximately 1.5 million kilometers from Earth. Back in March, about 3 months after the launch of the telescope, the mirrors had already completed alignment. Around this time, we got to see a beautiful evolution image visibly. The image was that of a random star that was simply selected because it was in the middle of nowhere, and it was not a really bright one either. However, there was nothing really special about this image. It is just proof that the telescope is working. This image was, however, interesting because all the dots on it are different galaxies. All those dots that you can see are all galaxies, so you can only imagine how many galaxies there are out there. However, remember that this was just a preliminary image that was taken based on a very preliminary observation. So you can only imagine how many galaxies are going to be discovered once the James Webb Telescope is fully operational. One thing people ask about, though, is the spikes that are visible around the star. These are just the ordinary spikes that are visible depending on the shape of the mirror of the telescope. In this case, it is as a result of the hexagonal shape that is formed by the mirrors, which are also somehow visible around other objects. They will also be visible in future observations. But not to worry, because the scientists know how they will extract them, so that should not bother you in any way. The agency made an announcement about a week ago that the combination of the sun shield that you can see and the active crycooler, which is responsible for cooling down the infrared instrument, or MIRI, to about 6 to 7 Kelvin, has already succeeded. They said that the telescope was already at its operational temperature, which is an extremely low temperature, just a few degrees below absolute zero. This simply meant that the mission could officially begin, and it was now ready to make any future observations. Interestingly enough, ESA's Gaia telescope, which is responsible for watching the motion of various objects around the universe and has been quite instrumental in creating a lot of very accurate three-dimensional maps of our galaxy, accidentally managed to spot the James Webb Telescope and snapped an image of it. It seemed like a tiny star that was somehow visible. Considering that the distance between the two telescopes is about 1 million kilometers, this was actually quite impressive. However, what impressed the scientists even more was the images that were taken when the James Webb Telescope completed the whole alignment process. These images, which were released not so long ago, were a clear indication that everything was aligned and that they were working as intended. Maybe even better than the scientists expected. The scientists did not actually expect the images to be of such great quality. So now that all the instruments are ready and at the right temperatures, the telescope is ready to start exploring the vast universe as soon as possible. Some of the astronomers took to Twitter to compare the images to some of the previous observations from other older infrared telescopes. The images posted by Andres Gaspar were pretty interesting because they showed how far we have actually come in just a couple of decades. The first image was that of the WISE telescope, which was functional about a decade ago, then that of the Spitzer telescope, which was deactivated in 2020, and now that of the active MIRI instruments on the James Webb Telescope, whose mirror size is about 8 times larger than the Spitzer telescope. If you were to observe the images from the James Webb Telescope, you would notice so many galaxies, and they are pretty much everywhere. Apart from the bright dots, each other dot on the image is a galaxy that is somewhere out there. Furthermore, each image from each instrument has quite a lot of dots on it. This clearly means that future observations will definitely be mind-blowing. There is actually the possibility of discovering things about the early universe that we never even anticipated. But since this is predominantly an infrared telescope, we're going to be seeing a lot of detail from around our own galaxy that we have never seen before. Similarly, we might finally have the answers to a lot of questions about nearby stars and nearby exoplanets. However, in terms of alignment, everything has been given the green light. It seems that the telescope is now ready to begin its operation. The scientists are to be appreciated for managing to provide such clear images. It is said that when they were testing the telescope on the ground, they had to test the mirrors in a slightly different way. This is because they were testing the mirrors under gravity conditions. They had to anticipate that the moment the mirrors reached the L2 point, they were going to be in zero gravity, and this might cause them to change their shape or even expand a little bit. This would lead to a slightly different focal point and potentially slightly different deformation, which might actually cause the mirrors to not be so effective. However, since scientists put this into consideration, we have gotten some of the most accurate pictures of the universe ever. So this means that only extremely minor changes to the mirrors will be made, based on extremely minor changes as the telescope changes orientation. However, the telescope's mission will not begin until the summer. The next few steps will be based on every individual instrument and every individual team that is behind the instrument. This part, which is known as instrument commissioning, is one of the riskier maneuvers yet. This is because it is going to require the telescope to move around, and by changing its orientation, scientists are really trying to minimize the amount of solar radiation that hits the observatory along with the instruments. This is to make sure that the temperature does not change too much, which will ensure that everything stays relatively cool. Also, every 2 days, the scientists will be checking the orientation of every single mirror, just to make sure that nothing has happened to them. It is also to make sure that everything is still working as they apply any required corrections. But in all this, the most important part is going to start in the summer, which is known as DDERS, or Director's Discretionary Early Release Science Programs. This is a program that has granted about 460 hours of observation to 13 different programs as they kickstart the science program of James Webb. There will be 6 main topics, which are galaxies and intergalactic medium, massive black holes and their host galaxies, planets and planet formation, the solar system, stellar physics, and stellar populations. This will actually help us study more about the universe faster, as they will all collect data and bring it together. So, what do you think of the James Webb Telescope? Feel free to let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.